Nobody would ever argue that the Pixel phone, regardless of the generation, makes fantastic astrophotography photos out of its little camera. It's always been that way. And it's a fantastic camera for taking those sorts of photos. It's always been argued though that the iPhone, although it's a very good camera, doesn't take very good astro photos. Until now. G'day guys, Shane Mostyn here. Welcome to 5 Minute Friday. Today we are putting the Pixel astrophotography mode up against the Apple's Pro RAW. And the results are pretty interesting. If you're new here, I do 2 videos each and every week all about small sensor photography. So hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed. If you are, you're a bloody legend. Everything that we're talking about here today is listed down in the description down below. So let's get into this. How we're going to do this today, I'm going to do 4 tests. And these 4 tests are going to be the Pixel in the astrophotography mode, the iPhone in the Pro RAW mode, and taking the same photo at the same time of day. The first test we're doing is with a fair bit of moonlight in the area. So we're taking photos of the stars and there's a fair bit of light pollution from the moon. The second test that we're doing is in pretty much total darkness. The sun had just gone down. If I looked over to the west behind me there, I would have seen a little bit of the sunset. In fact, in one of the photos, I'm shooting into that sunset. The sun's well and truly below the horizon. There's plenty of stars around. So that's the third test, into a bit more light, but not as much as moonlight. And the fourth test is what I would describe as probably the ultimate test. It's taking away all that computational photography and we're putting the bare bones of both of these photos up against each other. Now, I don't know what it was like where you were growing up, but where I grew up here in Australia, we always had this Ford and Holden thing. They're the 2 manufacturers of the cars. Well, they used to be 2 manufacturers. We don't make anything here anymore. But they were the 2 manufacturers of cars that were made here in Australia. We had Ford Falcons and Holden Commodores. And you either grew up as a Ford person or a Holden person. And both of those things, at the end of the day, they're cars. You hop in them and you go from A to B. And they were the same thing, just made by different companies. And I think that's the same way that it is now with mobile devices, with the photography. I've had comments on some of my videos specifically about iPhones. Thumbnail said iPhone, comment said iPhone, title of the description of the video said iPhone, and I get people come in and say, I hate iPhone. Why the hell did you watch the damn thing if you hate it that much? So I think that sort of mentality exists in this world as well. But I think we need to look at it a little bit differently. I think we need to look at these manufacturers are trying to outdo each other with the computational photography and the hardware that they're putting into these devices. And at the end of the day, only one group of people win out of this, and that's us. So if these manufacturers are investing that much money into making these things that work incredibly well, who cares what's written on the phone? If it's doing a good job, who cares? We win. Anyway, let's have a look at these 2 cameras. What I'm testing here tonight is the Google Pixel 4a. I've done lots of videos on that, I'll link up the top here. Let's look at the specs on that. So the Google's got a 12.2 megapixel camera, f1.7, and the pixel size is 1.4 microns, and that matters a lot in low light photography. The larger that pixel on that sensor, the more light can be captured by that sensor. The iPhone has a 12 megapixel camera, so a slightly smaller megapixel, if you like, less megapixels. f1.6, so the aperture is open just a little bit wider, and the pixel size is 1.7 microns. So it's bigger pixel size than what the Google Pixel has. That's a bit of a tongue twister. So the Pixel's a little bit better in one way, the iPhone's a little bit better in one way, and we'll see what the results are. So what we've got here are the 4 different tests that I've done with a couple of little extra bits thrown in. So the first photo that we're looking at here, and the way this test was done, is that I set up the tripod, didn't move the tripod, well not very much anyway, and I've taken the photo with the Pixel. This is the Pixel photo, and this is the iPhone photo. There's really not that much in it. Let me explain what I've done here. So with the Pixel photo, this is a 4-minute photo, and when you're out there in the middle of the night taking photos of the stars, 4 minutes, well, it just seems a long time. This one here is the iPhone photo. It took 30 seconds. And you can argue that, well, it's a better photo. Well, I've edited this one. This is the iPhone photo. I've edited this one, but I can tell you now that the edit that I've done on this took me less than 2 minutes. So at the end of the day, it's still a quicker photo and the results are pretty bloody spectacular. Let's go in a bit closer and have a look at some of these. You look at the stars on the pixel photo, and these are pretty sharp stars. I think they are. What I would argue is that with the iPhone photo, which is this one, the stars are brighter. However, the stars have a little bit of star trails about them. The stars on the pixel photo are sharper. The stars on the iPhone are brighter. So with the editing that I've done on these, I've just basically tried to make the iPhone photo look just like the pixel photo as close as I can within a couple of minutes. So at the end of the day, our net time is quicker with the iPhone and the results are pretty bloody close to being the same. So that was with about a 3/4 full moon. That's why the ground in front there looks quite bright. Let's have a look at this series of photos. So these ones here, this is facing towards the east. The sun setting behind me. Well, it's pretty well finished setting. There's a little bit of glow on the horizon out behind me. So this is pointing directly into the darkness of the night sky. This is the pixel photo, a 4-minute long pixel photo, a stacked image, and this is a RAW file from the iPhone. Now you look at these two photos and you go, well, they're really not that different. You could sit here and argue the whole Ford and Holden thing, but at the end of the day, these two photos are pretty bloody close. So again, with the pixel photo, I've taken a 4-minute photo. With the iPhone photo, I've taken a 30-second photo, and I've edited this photo in less than 2 minutes. So the net time is still quicker on the iPhone, and the results, really, the iPhone photos with the stars are a bit brighter. There are star trails with the iPhone. I get that. We don't get that with the Pixel. I get that. But at the end of the day, this is coming out of a phone on both of these cases, and nobody can argue that this is not good photos out of both of those phones. Interestingly, I took another one here. This is a HEIC photo, exactly the same setup without ProRAW, and you look at these artifacts in here and it's just terrible. It's always been a bugbear of mine, the artifacts that you get with the HEIC or the JPEGs out of the iPhone with the night mode before ProRAW. Look at that compared to that. The ProRAW, it just changes the atmosphere. It changes everything for us that take photos at night with the stars. It's absolutely been a game changer for Apple, and they deserve a bit of a pat on the back for that. I think they do a good job with that, even though they're years behind other manufacturers, but that's okay. You're caught up eventually, guys. Let's go on to the next slide. This is the third test that I did. This test here, this tree that's out on the horizon, this little shed that's here, this hay shed, they're about 300 meters away from where I'm standing. So it was interesting to put pretty dark foreground with something in the further away foreground, if you like, so like the mid foreground, and see how it focuses on that and see what the computational photography does with that tree there and the shed. These line over here of lights, that's just a truck going past, I would say. But let's have a look at the stars. In this sort of environment, I think is where the Pixel really does shine. It does a really good job. The stars aren't as bright as what the iPhones were and the other ones. These lines through here are just a couple of power lines. But it's taken a pretty good photo, I think, with the sun well and truly below the horizon. Let's have a look at the iPhone. And the iPhone didn't really know what to do with this. Again, Pixel photo, 4 minutes. iPhone photo, 30 seconds. I've edited this as close as I can get it to the Pixel phone. It did a pretty good job. Like, you can't argue that it didn't do a very good job, but I don't think it's as good as the Pixel in this photo. Just to put all of this into perspective, the camera that I was out there filming that night, what I was doing for this video, what is that? It's a Canon 760D, so it's like an entry to intermediate level camera. There's nothing spectacular about it. That's the photo that it took. Look at the stars in that. That's so we can sit here and argue that the Pixel's better, the iPhone's pretty good too. That this little old cheapo camera, it did a pretty good job too. So I guess that's indicative of how clear our night skies are here. But I just wanted to put that into a little bit of perspective here. Both of these phones are doing a good as job, almost as good as job, as this intermediate crop sensor camera. So a sensor that's like, I don't know, 10, 15 times as large as these two phones. It did a better job, but I wouldn't say that many times better. So both of these, the Pixel and the iPhone, both did a good job. This is the ultimate test as far as I'm concerned though. What this next photo does, this photo here, what this photo does, it's got a bit of foreground element. There's virtually no moonlight. But what I will tell you is that each of these photos was shot for the same duration. So the sun had just gone down, there's still a little bit of ambient light, or a fair bit of ambient light, but the maximum that the iPhone would let me shoot on this photo was 22 seconds because of the amount of light that was still apparent. What I did then is that I shot the Pixel for 22 seconds. I did a quick edit on the iPhone to make it look similar to the Pixel. There's the Pixel photo. There's the stars up here. So there's plenty of stars around. Let's have a look at the iPhone. I think that the iPhone stars are a little bit brighter. What I will say across the board with the Pixel photos is they tend to look really blue. I've tried to make these look blue as well to make them, I might bring that up a little bit, the white balance. I tried to make these as close as I could to each other so that it was a reasonably similar playing field, if you like. But there you go, there's the 4 tests. Now if you want any of these images, all of the edited images here are over at phonephotoschool.com.au, and if you go there to the reviews, and there's the review that I'm doing right here will be posted on that website, and you can download all these images and really zoom into them and see for yourself just how good these are. So that's interesting, isn't it? Let's talk about the results of all of this and what we need to keep in mind. One is a $350 phone. That's it, it's cheap as. One is a $1,100 phone, and there's a significant difference in that. It's like 2-3 times the price, depending on where you are in the world. But there's a few things we need to keep in mind with this. One, with the iPhone, only takes 30 seconds to photograph the stars. The Pixel takes 4 minutes, so if time's a factor, well, the iPhone wins there. The iPhone definitely has brighter stars, but the Pixel phone has sharper stars. So I reckon they both should get a point there if you were going to keep tally of this. I think that once you've edited things with the iPhone ProRAW, you get a more proper color balance, if you like. I think that the Pixel, in my opinion, shoots way too cold for doing this sort of photography. The skies just weren't that blue. And the edits that I've done, I've just tried to replicate what the Pixel is doing. So don't pay too much attention to the color in those photos that I've just shown you there. I was just trying to get them to be a similar sort of a photo. So it's a fairly true test. The downside of the iPhone versus the Pixel in this little test is that you've got to edit all the photos. But you can do it quicker than what the Pixel can. So who really knows? I guess the point that I'm trying to make here is that both of these phones are doing a pretty bloody good job these days. And it doesn't matter if you sit on this side of the fence or that side of the fence. At the end of the day, we, the consumer, are winning out of this. They can compete with each other as much as they want. We are the winners in this. All right, guys, that's more than 5 minutes. I'll see you next week.